with Gardner, and this is how to make a game from your basement and still live. I survived, yay. A little bit about me personally. So I taught high school English for over a decade, then decided to be a stay-at-home mom to my 2 boys. And my husband was this cool AAA guy. He was the lead designer on BioShock and the design director on BioShock Infinite. You may have heard of him, I don't know. But he was a video game guy. I was an English teacher and an author. And when Irrational closed, we decided we were going to make a game from home. And I'm going to talk more about that here. But right now, I am a yoga teacher, meditation teacher, mindfulness teacher, speaker about all sorts of things, self-care. I co-founded the Deep End Games with my husband, Bill Gardner. I wrote Perception, which launched in 2017 across all the major platforms, and it is about a blind woman who can use echolocation to explore the haunted mansion from her nightmares. I'm currently a narrative director on our secret project. I know that the discussion for the talk says that I'll be talking about our new project, Dark Web. Change of plans, not talking about it, and that's not what it's called anymore, so sorry, not sorry. And I am a mom of 4 because we had 2 production babies on Perception. Emphasis on how to make a game from your basement and still live. It was a thing, you guys. We're gonna talk about some things. So, how did I get here? We had a rough go of it, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. It was really, really hard we actually didn't make it from our basement at first. We were in the spare room. And then I had 2 babies and we had to move it to a corner of the basement. So it's not even an entire basement. So the reason why I'm here speaking about this is because things went horribly awry from a health perspective for my husband and myself. So we had a game and crunch. We had a toddler. We had a newborn. We both got mono from stress. Like, what adult gets mono? Oh, Bill and myself. It was during GDC and PAX, by the way, and while we were in crunch. So because of sort of poor planning, poor self-care, we got incredibly sick, and my passion is to talk to this industry about how to take care of ourselves on a physical, emotional, mental level, and just help people. That's really why I like to do these talks. But yeah, we had a total shutdown during crunch. Our bodies weren't working because we got so ill. So that's why I am here. Some things that I learned and that I would like to pass on. How to actually relax instead of pretend you're relaxing. How to get your time management under control. My GDC talk this year was on time management. It's free in the vault because it's an advocacy talk. But I actually incorporated a lot of that in here because I have an hour to speak instead of 30 minutes. To help my body cope and to help Bill, curating your life. You know on Facebook or Twitter, when somebody's really clogging up your feed and you can't stand them, you just hide them? Learn to do that with the rest of your life. It's amazing. It's life-changing. Scheduling, no multitasking. Multitasking is actually the enemy, and I used to talk about it like, oh, it's great. I can run my studio from home and have 4 kids. Like, no. Your kids are going to be running around lighting things on fire, and the game's not going to work. So, like, believe me, multitasking is the enemy. How to snap back, which is emotional resilience. A lot of times when we're working, we get so bogged down and so hung up on something that we can't recover. And it's that recovery of being able to snap back quickly that gets us back on track and gets us back in peak flow, which is really the best work environment. And also how we personally are going to do things differently next time around. So gaming dev life from home is particularly stressful. And I'm not going to say it's more stressful than an office, but the stresses are really different. So from a time management, time just evaporates and becomes a flat circle. You don't know what day of the week it is anymore. I'm like, kids, go to school. They're like, it's Sunday. Who are you? And because you're working and you've got your life and it's all in this one place, and it gets really, really confusing. Physical and mental issues. I dealt with depression and adrenal fatigue on Perception. I also had, like I said, 2 infants, which was really a challenge. And self-care fell to the wayside because what's more important, like taking care of the kids and making the game, or like go taking a bubble bath? That's not exactly what I'm saying, but like no, when in an airplane, when the when the thing falls and you have people to take care of, they say you put it on the mask on yourself first, because then you can actually take care of the people next to you. It's the same thing. You got to take care of yourself first. Money struggles. I mean, indie. Like I said, we're making this out of our basement. Family priorities, and a battle of personalities, because I don't know if you've ever worked with a loved one, but it can be really challenging. And the way you speak to your boss isn't necessarily the way you speak to your husband, and vice versa.
Or your parents.
So, right, exactly. So, lots of things to be managed that are very different from working in an office. So, the key takeaways for today, like this is what I want people to be able to go home with, is time management strategies, because if you focus on what matters and cut what doesn't, you win. That sounds very obvious, but a lot of times we don't do it for other reasons, like, oh, I just want to be nice, I'm going to say yes to this, or whatever. Like, we really need to be able to manage our time properly. Objectives. When you know exactly what your outcome is, you have a much easier time getting to it. And if you put those objectives at the forefront, it's way easier to make those tough decisions in life. And lastly, I am going to talk a lot about health. I am going to talk about a lot about my body and diet and whatnot, because it's something that we don't talk about that literally runs our entire day and can completely ruin your health if you don't take care of it. And I'm not just talking about crunch. I feel like game devs in general need better self-care, because we're creatives and we love to push ourselves, and we're so passionate about what we do that a lot of times it takes a back seat to, our health takes a back seat. So, this all started with Dave Grohl. I actually don't tell this story much. This is the first time I'm actually telling this story. But my husband saw a documentary about Foo Fighters, and they decided to make an album from home. And there's this one scene where they're recording, and Dave Grohl's kids run in, they're like, Dad, let's go in the pool. And he was like, okay, cool. And they drop everything, and the whole band and the kids, they all jump in the pool. And my husband was like, that's what I want. I was like, a pool? We don't have one, and we don't have any money. And he's like, no. And I was like, a member of Nirvana in the house? He's like, no, God damn it. I want to work from home and have the kids and be able to be with them, because when he was at Irrational working on the BioShock series, sometimes we wouldn't see him except for weekends and mornings, because game dev life and the hours and the commute, and it's wacky. He's like, no, we're gonna make the next game from home. And I said, okay, and we did. And it was amazing. It really was. Like, we did have those moments where the kids would be like, hey, let's go play basketball. But we also had those moments where we literally couldn't lift our heads off our desks because we had passed out, and it was rough. So balance is important. And I also love Foo Fighters, they're great. Okay, so we're gonna get started about time. And this is a picture of my favorite juicer from Williams-Sonoma. And now you guys are like regretting being here, like, why is she showing pictures of Dave Grohl and a juicer? Okay, so I used to really love this show called Good Eats on the Food Network. And Alton Brown used to talk about unitaskers, which are an item in your kitchen that only does one thing, like a garlic press. Only presses garlic, that's all it does. You say, don't have unitaskers in your kitchen. You want things that multitask. And so I just adopted that to life, and I was like, I'm gonna do everything all at the same time. I'm gonna feed my baby and go for a jog and blah, blah, like, no. So I saw this lovely little juicer at Williams-Sonoma. I was like, I really like that, but it's a unitasker. But I don't get much juice out of my lemons, and I'm mostly vegan, so I use a lot of citrus. I bought this thing, and I got like 10 times the juice out of it than anything else, and it was like a revelation, like, oh my God, if you do something the right way and don't do anything else, you're gonna get so much more juice out of it. And that is really like my theory in life, is that if you can get into that peak flow, if you can do one thing really well at one time, you're gonna get more juice, you're gonna get better results. And yeah, so one of the things that Bill and I did on Perception a lot was, oh, okay, so the kids have soccer, but we have a deadline. So we're gonna go to soccer and work on the script. We would all go to soccer. We would write a script that was so poor that it needed to be written when we got back, and we missed all our kids' goals because we were busy, on a laptop or whatnot. So none of our goals were achieved in that little example. We didn't really watch our kids play, and we really didn't do a good job on the game. So that's why delineating and doing one thing at a time is so incredibly important. Time is wibbly wobbly. So one of the things I've learned as a meditation expert is that time doesn't have to be what you think it is, and I know that that sounds a little bit esoteric, but one of my favorite meditation teachers, Deepak Chopra, talks about time sickness as being the epidemic of our generation. And it's the idea that we are always trying to beat the clock, that the clock is an enemy, and the time always runs out. And for game devs, I mean, that is a very true sounding thing, right? But time is also psychologically colored. So take an hour, for example. You just saw a friend you haven't seen in 10 years, and you've got an hour to catch up. It feels like 10 minutes, right? Like, oh, I can't believe an hour's up, I gotta go, this is awful. Now take that hour, and you're at the dentist, and the Novocaine's not working. That hour feels like 4 hours. It feels interminable. When you are in the state of working at peak flow and you're not distracted by other things and you're doing just one thing, time really does expand. Have you ever been in the zone, whether it's in like a sport or programming or creating music or art? It just works. So one of the things that Bill and I really talk about is that focusing on one thing, focusing on it really well, closing out all tabs, literally and figuratively, you know what I mean? Like if you've got a zillion things going on, you're not going to be able to get into that lovely peak flow. And Angela Duckworth wrote a book called Grit, where she studied some of the most successful people in a variety of industries, and she said that the common thread through each, other than hard work and perseverance, was this idea of peak flow, that once you get into it, time dissolves and you just get it done. Like it's such a good feeling. And if you can really try to cultivate your workspace, wherever that may be, and it could be your basement, it could be an office, to be a place of joy but minimal distractions. So I like to sort of like have my desk area with things that inspire me, like some of my favorite games, some of my favorite pieces of art, some essential oils and whatnot. And I know it sounds hippy-dippy, but it really does affect your mood. But not with a lot of things that will actually distract me, and I can get in the zone so much quicker because I'm in this focused, dedicated space. The last little bit on here, there's a book that I recommend later by Schwartz and Lair, and they talk about working like an athlete. And if you think about how athletes train, it's not remotely like what we do in an office, right? Like not even close. They spend 80% of their time getting ready to perform. So 80% of their time is stretching, strengthening, sleeping, training, and then that 20% is the actual race or the sprint or the game. What Lair and Schwartz found is that in professional life, you can actually do this. If you spend the beginning of your workday preparing, getting in the zone, getting ready, looking at what you have to do, getting amped, getting inspired, that when you hit the switch and it's game on, you perform so much better than you would throughout the course of a day, that you can get so much done quicker, so much more quality, and less iteration. So when we talked before about multitasking being bad, studies have shown that when you multitask, your work needs to be iterated on, I think four times more than if you had just really focused on it. So when you get into peak flow, you make less mistakes and you're more inspired. And it's, for anybody in the industry, no matter what you do, I think that peak flow is a concept we can all sort of adopt. So back when I was a teacher, I actually gave my first time management advice, and I think it's still really pretty good advice. So I had all these honors kids who were stressed out and not sleeping, and they were really, their health was declining. And I said, okay, we're gonna like put what we're studying today on the back burner. No great expectations today, sorry guys. No. So we're just gonna do time management. So I showed them a picture of this jar. And I said, you have a lot of things that you've taken on that are immovable in your life, am I right? And they're like, yes. So it's a bunch of honors classes, a bunch of sports, a bunch of extracurricular activities, and a lot of them they just can't get out of. I said, okay, so imagine this jar is your day, and those things are immovable, right? Get out a blank piece of paper and draw out your schedule for the week with those immovable things. And so they blocked those off. I said, okay. I said, do you have any time left? No, we have no time left. I said, well, you kind of do. And then there was a picture of glass beads, small glass beads. Pour that in. Okay, now there's more room. I said, those are the things you should be doing. Now pencil in small amounts of things you should be doing in the little crevices of your day. They're like, oh, okay, so they were able to study for a test 3 days before it rather than the night before, etc. And then I said, is there any left? And they were like, no. And so I showed them a picture of sand, and then they were like, oh. I said, those are the things that you'd like to do, you'd like to be able to fit in. Look in your schedule, see if you have a couple of tiny little pieces of things that you'd like to fit in. And you know, it works. I said, is there any room left? They said no. And then I showed them a bottle of water. I was like, ha! You can't get any of this done if you're not hydrated. They're like, oh, Mrs. Gardner. But anyway, this is a really good, very simple time management technique of writing in the things that are indelible and then penciling in the smaller things that you'd like to do and then even the smaller things. So I really do believe that you should pencil in things like downtime. I'm going to take questions later. Pencil in downtime, pencil in fun stuff, because if you don't, you won't do it, and you know that, right? Gotta pencil it in. Next one. Okay, so the time management lessons that we learned particularly from perception. Okay, setting boundaries, and not everything is worth your time, and that's okay. That sounds a little bit harsh, but when you have a very rigorous schedule, you can't say yes to everything, as much as it may break your heart. And I'm going to give a really specific example that really it was hard for Bill and myself. So we are 2 days away from applying for CERT, okay? And we had a very tight schedule to release on time, 2 days away. But we were invited to speak at a local college that was Bill's alma mater. And he really, really wanted to. We love working with college kids because Boston's got tons and tons of colleges, and we love students, and we love helping them and helping them grow. And so we said yes, even though it was 2 days before CERT. We go in. Takes an hour to go in, park, etc. We get to this class, and the teacher says, okay, we have a couple of student projects left. And we're like, oh, well, that's fun. We get to see some student projects. Literally, the class ends before we had our time to do our talk to the kids. And the teacher just said, I'm so sorry. And we just had this moment of, okay, we need to learn to say no. Right? It sounded like a great opportunity. We didn't even get to meet these kids because they were just presenting their projects, and we didn't get to talk about the game. We didn't get to accomplish anything. It was all because we wanted to be nice and do the right thing. So one important phrase I've learned is, now's not a good time, but. Now's not a good time, but will come in the fall. Now's not a good time, but I can take that on maybe. If it's not central to your objectives, now's not a good time. Comma, but. Okay, very important. Secondly, meal prep. Bill and I literally spent probably a total of like a month just bickering about what to eat, where to eat, how to eat it, because we work from home. It's like, oh, should we go out? Or should we make something? I don't know, make something take a long while. Whereas at work, you either like have food there, I know a lot of studios have food during project, or you just grab your lunch. I've learned the art of meal prep, which is that top picture, and it literally saves, like honestly, dozens of hours. It's like, nope, this is what we're eating because I made it on Sunday. It's 1 hour of prep, a lifetime of not bickering. Like I said, this is from home. Like I'm talking about working from home, which is a challenge. Master life schedule in an obvious place. With 4 kids and a game, Bill and I had no idea what was going on at any time or place or whatever. Like I said, the kids we'd be like sending them off to school on the weekends. Sorry. So what we did was we painted an entire wall of our house in whiteboard paint. That's what that little picture is on the side there, the mom and the little white with the pink. We painted an entire wall, and we do a master schedule for our entire family, and it's the greatest home improvement choice I've ever made in my life, because the kids get their own sections, we get our own sections. Every single morning, all of my kids look and see what's going on. It's amazing. And like apps are great, but like we spend enough time on our phones, I think, and I think that this is just a really fun thing. And if you want to just buy a whiteboard, but put it in a central place. Painting the wall was fun though, because my toddlers really love the bottom half. I never write anything important in the bottom half, that's for sure. Ritualizing things takes off your plate. So this is fascinating research. This goes back to that book I mentioned. So one thing that Steve Jobs and Barack Obama had in common was that neither ever picked out their clothes. So Steve Jobs wore the same uniform every day. It was like a black turtleneck and black pants. And Barack Obama always outsourced his clothing decisions. That's because studies have shown that willpower in decision making is a finite resource in humans. As much as we love to think like, I could just keep going, I could just keep plugging away, it's true. The little choices we make actually drain us, which is just, I mean, it's kind of depressing. But if you can ritualize things, maybe meaning make them automatic, like brushing your teeth. If you don't think about it, you just do it, hopefully. Not like my 8-year-old. If you can get certain things off your plate, you know, pretend you're 8 again and lay out your wardrobe for a week. Like, do what you gotta do, or just not care. Just taking things off your plate gives you more mental space and more bandwidth for choices later. That's why I also talked about the meal prep. I don't have to worry about lunch anymore because lunch is a planned thing. I already have it in the bank. And the reason the whole willpower thing comes into play at work a lot is they also found that most people cheat on their diets and spouses after work because your willpower has been drained. Isn't that sad? So in this book they talk about just if you can automate anything in your life, if your morning is literally like coffee maker, brush teeth, you know, do take my supplements, whatever, like get it off your plate, have it ready to go, and you will have actually literally more brain space. It's remarkable. And over-plan because it's easier to cut than cram. I think that that's kind of like a time management universal thing, that if you over-plan, yeah, you can just cut things if I need to. Whereas if you're trying to shoehorn something into your life, good luck with that. And lastly, and this is why I put the picture of Bill doing this, is delegate. Delegate when you are not the expert. One of the things that happened on Perception was Bill did everything. He did, I mean, I wrote the story, I took, you know, I produced, I took care of the family, but Bill did almost every little thing except for, you know, art and music. But he really did too much, and there were so many days where he would lose an entire work day to technical issues that if we had just hired somebody for the tech component, we would have finished the game months earlier. So delegating, that is one of the #1 things we learned. Hire somebody, or find room in the budget, or, you know, do whatever you can, because if it's not your expertise, you're gonna spend longer on it. Remember we talked before about, like, oh, when you're multitasking, if it's not your expertise, you're gonna take 3 hours on it, where somebody who knows what they're talking about will be like, this takes 10 minutes to fix, right? So if you're working from home, find a way, delegate, get things off your plate. And a lot of times they're just happy volunteers. Like we actually had a lot of people being like, hey, if you need help with this, and we're just like, oh, no, that's fine, it's fine. Take help, and that's going to be something I talk about later. Take assistance. So one of the things that I did in my journey after I got really sick is I went to minivan university, which means I listened to audiobooks in the car whenever I was in the car. No more music, no more podcasts. I was helping my life and improving my life one book at a time. And in the past 2 years, I've read about 200 titles, which is amazing. I mean, but I spend a lot of my life in the car. But one of the things that I learned was this RPM method, and it's Tony Robbins. I know a lot of people are like, oh, self-help guru, whatever. If you watch his special, I Am Not Your Guru on Netflix, it's amazing, and it'll change your life. But anyway, his RPM method is a specific strategical time management method that I use personally, and we learned it while doing Perception's remaster. So when we were doing Perception, it was like chaos, 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 and then we learned all this stuff, and when we were doing the remaster and the Switch version, we were like, things work so much better now. So RPM is results, purpose, massive action. So if you focus on the results, like what you want in the end, that's the goal. So many of us make to-do lists where, let's be honest, 90% of the stuff on your to-do list is just so you can check something off and you think it might move the ball down the field. But if you focus only on what gets the result you need, you can cut a lot of really stupid things off your to-do list. Purpose-driven. Simon Sinek has this great talk on the why of what we do. That's purpose here. What do you really want from that objective? If you just have an objective and no real feeling or reason behind it, you're going to fail. And lastly, the massive actions. Those are the revised, critical to-do list that doesn't have all the fluff. So I did a little example, perception related. So result, I wanted a script from chapter 2 that was emotionally engaging and left breadcrumbs for a twist at the end. I thought that really was what chapter 2 hinged on, right? My purpose is that I really wanted players to feel connected and emotionally resonant with Betty. And so I also wanted that lovely feeling of surprise when you're able to connect the dots and the ending makes sense and you're like, oh, I kind of knew it, but I didn't. Wow, it's like that nice little feeling. So the massive actions I did. Number 1, I did a Save the Cat outline. If anybody is a writer here and you've never heard of Save the Cat, put it on your to-read list ASAP. Save the Cat is a book by Blake Snyder, and it's about screenplay writing, but it applies to game writing if you're writing a linear game. And it outlines every beat that should happen in a story, and he does it in a really engaging way. It's really great. So I did a Save the Cat beat sheet, and I visualized with every beat what the player's reaction may be to what was happening, and that really helped me with that, getting that emotionally resonant chapter. But that's basically a little sample of an RPM, so you can take any major goal or objective that you have and run it through the RPM, and you'll get a much tighter to-do list out of it. So time management, hooray. Objective. So one of the books that I read at Minivan University was the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't have time to do all 7, so I'm teaching you number 3. Number 3 is goals. In fact, if you were to take a picture of any slide in this entire thing, I would take a picture of this, because once I explain it, you're going to be like, oh, that's why I spend so much time doing things that aren't important. Okay, so Stephen Covey says that basically, all of our tasks in a day fall into 4 quadrants. Urgent and important, urgent and not important, not urgent but important, and not urgent, not important. When we are making games, especially when Bill and I were making Perception, literally everything was on fire, so it was quadrant 1. So, oh my God, we gotta do this, and everything hinges on it. And if we weren't doing things from quadrant 1, we were doing things from quadrant 3. Oh my God, we have to get this part done. Not sure why, but it's important. I mean, it's just got to get done because it's urgent. What Covey recommends is to do quadrant 2 first when you arrive to work every day. And that's where the sweet spot is. Not urgent, but important. This is where you plan. This is where you strategize. This is where you build relationships. This is where you get the long-term strategy going. This is the peak flow, or preparing for peak flow quadrant. We talked before about getting in the zone. Okay? This is where you get in the zone. How many of the emails you get in a day are really super critical? Think about it. A lot of them are quadrant 4, like not even remotely important. And a lot of them are quadrant 3. Quadrant 3 takes up more game dev life than you realize. You think it's urgent, so you do it fast. But in the long term, is it serving any objective? Is it really getting you where you need to go? No. So I call quadrant 3 the delegate. Delegate, or now's not a good time, but quadrant, right? So if it's not important, if it does not have that objective, like we talked about the objectives earlier, outsource it or delay it. Okay, so work in quadrant 2. Quadrant 1 is going to happen. I mean, especially in crunch and in game dev life. Like, there are things that you are going to inevitably have to deal with, whether something came down the pipeline wrong to you, or whether something broke the game and you need to completely redo something. Quadrant 1 is going to happen, but you should not spend most of your day in it. Now for the touchy-feely bits. There's another book that I read in my travels called The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte, and it basically hinges on one question. How do you want to feel? Bill and I designed the Deep End games around the idea of we want to feel like we're doing important work and spending important time with our family at the same time, right? We lost sight of that. We did not feel that. Every day felt like chaos until we started to realize, well, how does this make me feel? So in the long term of your games career, you might have goals that are arbitrary because you think it'll make you feel something. I want to have 3 ship titles by the time I'm 30. Okay.
how does that make you feel? Oh, okay, it makes me feel accomplished, and it makes me feel like I've really, done something of note. Okay, well, are there other things you could do that could make you feel that without having to burn yourself out? That's really the question. So if you really try to focus on what you're feeling, things can be a lot easier and a lot nicer. You don't have to set sales goals that are outrageous, but you want to feel taken care of. You want to feel like your life is abundant rather than like, I'm loaded, like I want to be able to go out to eat and not look at the price, that kind of thing. Like, how does that feel? Next, I've already talked a lot about living with intention, but basically, like I said before, curate your entire life as though it were your Instagram or Twitter or Facebook feed. Cut shit you don't enjoy or that doesn't serve you in any way. If you have certain people that stress you out, bye. I don't have time for that. Now's not a good time, Nana, but. Be purposeful about who you interact with. Your energy's a real thing. And remember that time I talked about willpower draining you? Spend 10 minutes with somebody who's emotionally draining and see how well you work. Has anybody ever watched the TV show version of What We Do in the Shadows? Anybody? Okay, so there's a character that's a psychic vampire, like an emotional vampire, and he's just like this boring dude who, like, when he talks to you, you're just like, oh, that really drains your energy. So, like, if you don't have to talk to people like that, don't. Curate how you spend your free time. Learn to say no to things. Even if they sound fun, does it serve your objective of having a specific kind of fun? Does it serve your objective of networking in the industry? Does it serve certain objectives? Say not now. And also, asking for help and actually taking it. So many of us have a problem accepting help. So many of us have a problem asking for help. But when Bill and I were in the trenches, and Bill had he was literally working with his head on a pillow and an iced coffee hanging out of his mouth. I took a picture, I was like, this is sad. I called his mom. And she's not like the babysitter of our family, like my mom is. And I called her and I was like, look, your son's passed out at the desk. Can you help out a little bit? And she was like, absolutely. Why didn't you ask before? And I'm like, oh, I should have asked before. A lot of this could have been avoided by asking for help. And you ever notice that you have a lot of well-meaning people in your life who are like, hey, if you ever need, like, I'll bring over dinner or something. And you're like, nah, I wouldn't want to trouble you. That person just offered something to you, and you declined it because you think you're being polite. If people offer something, they usually mean it. Think about the times where you've offered things to people. You mean it, right? Take them up on it. When I mentioned to a neighbor that I had mono during Crunch, and she said, I'm making you dinner tonight. And every fiber of me was like, no, kid, no, you got 2 kids, you don't have to do that. But what came out of my lips was thank you. And it meant so much. The fact that I didn't have to put in that effort that night because I was unbelievably sick, jet lagged from GDC, and it meant everything. So if people offer help, take it. If you think somebody might help you, take the help. So that picture's there because that is where we made Perception. It's not even a basement, it's a corner of a basement. Wow. But we made a borderline AAA quality looking game out of that corner, so I was pretty proud of it. But we had a lot of things go wrong that I haven't talked about yet. So plan ahead, even if your backup plans fail. One of the things that caused the biggest amount of stress was funding. So after we had built a lot of the game using our Kickstarter, we realized that we still had a lot left to do. And a very big, unnamed movie studio offered us a lot of money to finish the game. And we said, yes. But we took a very long time working on the contract because we wanted to protect ourselves and make sure we were doing things right and crossing every T and dotting every I. And we had people working full time while we worked on this contract. 6 months later, they call us and say, sorry, our funding has been pulled. It was the day we were supposed to be signing the contract. And we had had people working for 6 months. But luckily, one thing Bill did do right. Meanwhile, I was like, I couldn't even speak. I was so upset. Bill said, we have some backup plans. That was the first thing out of his mouth. And he sent 10 emails, and within the week we had some more funding. It wasn't nearly what we had planned. But everybody needs a backup plan of a backup plan of a backup plan if you are making a game from home. You have to realize that sometimes things might crumble. You might lose key people. You might lose funding. Having a cool head and being able to pivot is critical. And that's that emotional resilience I talked about. I had none at this point. I was like frayed at all ends. I remember we actually got the phone call when I was nursing my daughter, and I almost dropped her. I was so floored that this company was just like, yeah, we're not making video games anymore, just movies, bye. Oh my God, it was so horrible. But Bill had that snapback. He had that emotional resilience. So sometimes side hustles are more hassle than help. So back to the money thing. In business, they say, pay yourselves first, because it's your business and you need to keep the lights on. We were doing the nice thing and being like, no, we gotta make this game, so we're gonna pay all our contractors, of course, because they're working, and if there's any left in the end, we'll get some. And that did not go well for a family of 6. So I took on pretty much 4 other jobs while doing this. I took a maternity position at a high school. I took a retail job at night. I did some copy editing, and I hawked skincare. And it was not worth it because it drained me of my time and willpower. And the amount of money it made, I probably could have spent that time, a quarter of that time, just finding more funding and getting that instead. So sometimes you think you're doing the right thing, but you have to look at the cost-benefit analysis of it and be like, is this really worth it? It was hard. There were some tough times. Another thing is trusting your gut. If you know your objectives, then you can trust your gut. If you know what the outcome is, you can trust your gut. If you're making decisions and they're not based in objectives, that's a problem. If you know your objectives, your ideas can survive an industry change. So when we started making Perception, Gone Home was the hotness. Everybody loved these lovely indie narrative linear games. And about a year into production of Perception, it was like streamers sort of made that linear storytelling a little bit less appealing to buy, right? You could just watch it. But we had a goal, and we said we want to ship from our home a game on all major platforms, and we did. So our objective was met, even though the industry changed, and obviously the figures did not work out the way we originally wanted. Our objective was, can we do this? Hell yes, we can, and we did. Clear goals help with personal conflicts. So I work with my husband literally 24 hours of the day. But when you know what you want, it makes the personal bickering a lot less important. And life and work do blur. And I've mentioned that many times, and it's important that if you decide to do this from home, your life and your work, it's all going to blend together, and it can be really freaky. But if you have clear objectives, you should be in good shape. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit less time on this, but I think it's still critically important. How to keep your body from shutting down. So a lot of people, when I teach meditation, say, I don't have time for meditation. Do you really not have an extra 5 minutes when you wake up? They say that starting your day with meditation is the most important part because it sets the tone and the momentum for your day. They say the first 17 seconds really make or break your day. So if you wake up and go, ugh, sorry, it's going to be all downhill. But if you wake up and sort of force yourself to do a couple things, you could sort of just do some breathing. You can have some gratitude, like, wow, I'm really grateful that it looks sunny out. Or like, oh, I'm so glad that I have this nice pillow. It could be the dumbest thing, but if it starts your day with gratitude, then do it. Body scan. Sometimes we only notice our bodies when they hurt. Am I right? Like, guess what? You have calves. And if they don't hurt, you don't even think about them at all. So body scan is the easiest way to not really meditate, but kind of meditate. Just sort of like notice your feet. Notice how your legs feel. Just sort of notice, going all the way up. And suddenly, you're in your body instead of your head. And that actually is very good on a chemical level for your stress. Escalating and de-escalating breath. I like to say that you no longer need caffeine or booze if you just know how to breathe right. And this is fun. So, a 3-part breath, when you inhale and when you exhale, can actually give you, from a chemical level in your own body, more energy than coffee or more chillness than a beer. So how this works is you inhale 3 times. Imagine filling your lungs by 1/3, 2/3, all the way, so it would be like, and then 1 long exhale. Exhale and do it for 1 minute. That makes your brain fire all sorts of stimulants that get you really alert and energetic. And the opposite happens when you do it exhaling. So if you take 1 long inhale and do 3 slow exhales, and do that for a minute, your body produces all of the nice relaxing chemicals like oxytocin and serotonin and all, and you get that nice relaxing letdown. So if you just focus on your breath for 1 minute, if you need to pick me up at your desk, you're like dragging, you get that 2:30 feeling at your desk, escalate your breath. If you're at your desk and your boss sent you an email that you cannot handle, you do that nice. Great app recommendation, Ananda. So Deepak Chopra has this great app called Ananda, and it has a little bit of a lesson and then a mantra. And the way mantras work is fascinating. So if you've ever seen anybody doing like Om, you're like, what the hell is that doing? What it does is it gives the monkey mind of you something to do, like juggle, while the rest of your brain gets to relax. So imagine there's a little yippy dog at your feet, and every time you drop a treat, that dog shuts up for 2 seconds. That's what a mantra does. So if this app gives you a mantra like so hum, and you think so hum, it's dropping those little treats at the part of your mind that's always chattering. So that's why, on a scientific level, mantra meditations work. So just some meditations that if you want to try it, it is really good for you. If you are having a lack of sleep from crunch or other game dev stuff, try something called yoga nidra. All you have to do is lie down, so there's no downward dog involved. Literally, lie down, go on YouTube, Google yoga nidra. Jennifer Reis, R-E-I-S, is the best. It is a meditation that puts you in a trance-like state that literally is the equivalent of 4 hours sleep. And this is like researched. It's incredible. So it's like a systematic relaxation of different body parts at a different time, and it's very soothing. But I do this whenever I travel and there's jet lag involved. It gives you instant. So what happens when you sleep? Sorry if this sounds like a tangent. I know I still have time. When you sleep, your body goes into theta and delta waves, which actually clean out toxins from your brain. Because during the day, the alpha waves and the beta waves, they sort of add toxins to your brain. When you sleep, it wipes it away. When you meditate deeply enough, you get that nice sort of defragging. So, highly recommended. Okay, so diet. I talk a lot about diet. I walk my talk. Here's my green juice. So one of the things that made Phil and I so sick is that we had adrenal fatigue, which your adrenals shoot cortisol, which back when we had to deal with things like bears chasing us, it would shoot cortisol and you would go into fight, flight, or freeze, and it gave your body that energy. But when you're stressed, like if your boss sends you an email that says, okay, period, and you're like, that period, what does it mean? Your body shoots cortisol as though he were a bear. And when you have enough stress, and your body starts shooting cortisol like Annie Oakley, and you have no idea, your body has no idea what's actual stress anymore, you get something called adrenal fatigue, and your body doesn't know what the hell's going on. You become really tired, you become really depressed, and your stress completely restricts your blood flow, it causes you to gain weight, it does all sorts of awful things. So there are certain foods you can eat that will help with adrenal fatigue and just help heal your body. One are adaptogens, and adaptogens are super cool because they actually give you time between stimulus and response. So if your kid asks you something, you snap at them, this gives you that 1 second before you snap at them. So these are supplements like ashwagandha, rhodiola, tulsi, lots of mushrooms do it. Antioxidants are great because they repair your body on a cellular level. A lot of times people talk about, like, oh, my body, my knee hurts. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's not just your knee joint. There's a lot of inflammation there. And antioxidants can really help with that. So things you put in smoothies like amla, acai, kale, goji berries, clove, those all have very high antioxidants. I take those every single day. And lastly, the last one is really fascinating. There's this book called Super Immunity. And it's by this man, Dr. Furman. And he says that if you add a G-bomb to your diet every day, it'll lessen your chances of getting sick in many ways, like sick as in like cold and also sick as in disease, by this astronomical amount. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's so easy that Bill and I drop G-bombs every day. So greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. At the beginning of the week when you're doing your meal prep, saute up onions and mushrooms, okay? Put them in everything you make that week. Pasta, stir fries, if you like a scramble, like a tofu scramble or egg scramble, put that in it. Then start every day with a smoothie. I'm going to take questions later. Smoothie with greens, berries, and seeds. I actually do chickpeas too, so beans. So you can have that every day, and it helps heal your body inside out. Relaxing on a cellular level, sorry, not sorry, but these are the things that cause inflammation in your body, causes you to get sick and not feel good. And things that inflame you are all of the fun things in life. I'm sorry, dairy, sugar, gluten, caffeine, alcohol, processed meats, and refined oils. Bye. Thank you for coming to my talk. I actually have cut all of these, and it's completely changed my life. I no longer suffer debilitating migraines many times a month. They're all gone. I no longer need caffeine. Like, I'm doing this with my energy, not with, Red Bull. And it actually is really helpful. So if you are hurting in any way, your gut, your head, whatnot, you may want to try cutting some of these. I mean, I'm not saying cut all because that sounds really hard, and it is. And sometimes I cheat. But if you're not feeling good physically, you might want to cut some of those. And lastly, I swear I'm wrapping things up, I promise. So what we learned making perception is stress literally hurts. Diet literally helps, or harms. The small decisions we make result in exponential change. So there's another book on my recommended reading list called The Slight Edge. And the theory of this book is the micro decisions you make in life really are what make you, in the long term, healthy, happy, etc., financially. So like you could be in your 20s and being like, I don't know, I've made some poor, financial decisions, but it hasn't really affected me. Oh yeah, wait till you hit like 35 and you keep on that trend. So literally every choice will put you on an uptrend or a downtrend. It's an interesting book, and the theories are really fascinating, and the data is really fascinating. Another thing is I watched a documentary that really sums up how to eat for your body, and it's called In Defense of Food, and it's on Netflix, and it's amazing. But the guy has 3 rules for eating. Eat real food, as in not processed, mostly plants, and not too much. That's it. That's the key to eating healthy. Eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. It's a fascinating documentary on the state of food right now. Really, really great. And lastly, moving your body and spending time in nature. There was a time during Crunch when Bill went outside and said, I can't see 3D. And I was like, what? He was having depth perception issues outdoors because he had spent so much time inside. I shit you not. It's like, we need to either move the computer outside or like reshuffle our day around. So we tried to play with the kids outside every day as long as it's not like a monsoon. So being outside is important. Having 3D depth perception is also important. See, perception, it all comes back to perception. That is a lovely picture of J.P. Sears. He cracks me up, so I put that picture there for the reading list. I know that a lot of what I talk about seems hippy-dippy, but it's really changed my life for the better. But these are some of the things that I read at Minivan University. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Power of Full Engagement. That was the one with the study about ritualizing and your wardrobe and stuff. The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte. How Not to Die is a really great book on diet. The Slight Edge is that one about like the micro decisions you make in life. Full Catastrophe Living is about meditation and how you can incorporate it into everyday life. Barking Up the Wrong Tree It is so fun and so fascinating. It's about success, but it looks at really wacky stories throughout history. I just love it so much. And The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is about mindfulness and sort of being in the moment. And I forgot Grit by Angela Duckworth. That's the one about peak flow. We do have about 10 minutes, so I am happy to take questions. I'm going to put it on the slide where you can contact me. You can consider me your crunch coach if you're going through crunch and you need to talk to somebody, if you have any questions that we don't address, or if you just want to email me for funsies, that's where you can reach me. So I will take, yes, hello.
So you were talking about how to like come back when things have like go poorly. So
Yeah.
you're like coding something and it's very frustrating and you just do it poorly.
Yeah.
How do you like get out of that mindset and do it correctly?
You take a short break, do something completely different, and then go back to it being like forgiving yourself. Like a lot of us we get stuck because like we're so angry at like things going wrong and we perseverate on it. Like so if it's the technology or if it's you or if it's a coworker, we don't just let it go. And you need to be able to just be like, you know what? It happened. You just need to have that like build a bridge and move on kind of thing. So do something else, completely distract yourself entirely. And it could be like 2 minutes. It could be doing breath work. It could be going to the bathroom. And when you get back, you just have to say, that's too bad that happened. And you just have to sort of, the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Like at first you're gonna be like, this emotional resilience sucks. But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it gets. It's like anything. So, yeah. Hey.
So I'm having a little bit of problem working on separating work and life.
Yeah.
I mean, just the way that my home's set up a little bit right now, my computer's in my bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a little bit hard to be like, now it's work time, and now it's
Oh yeah.
whatever time,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. So what I would recommend is change things up. If that means reorganizing what you have in your bedroom to make it a different looking place, change it up. If that means like hang up some new artwork or diffuse oils or do something to make you feel like this isn't just my bedroom, this is my place of work. Or there's plenty of places where you can work for free, like go to a Starbucks and connect to the Wi-Fi. I suggest like bringing your laptop outside if it's a laptop. I don't know if it is. I would say change your space and schedule in time that you get out of that bedroom. Schedule it. Put it in your calendar. Don't just say, I'm going to go out at 10. You put it in, and you go out. Any other questions? Okay.
I mean, you go back to the slide that said about mastering the life.
Okay, let me see. Sorry. This one? Okay, great. Questions? Yep.
Would it be good to eat carbs?
So carbs do give you energy, but it depends. If they're super refined, it's been processed a lot, it's going to sort of gum up in your system. So I think carbs like sweet potatoes are much better for you. I mean, everybody loves a nice piece of bread, but some people don't tolerate it well. Like my son's gluten tolerant, but it doesn't give him an upset stomach. It gives him brain fog, and he gets kind of tired and confused. So bread, I mean, schizophrenia used to be called bread madness because there is a high correlation between gluten intolerance and certain illnesses. It's kind of crazy, the things, read Wheat Belly, it's really fascinating what bread does to you cognitively, but I still eat it here and there because I'm human. Like I try to eat 80% great most of the time, and 20%, god damn it, I'm gonna have a, parfait or something, I don't know. Parfait, who says parfait? Questions? Yes.
What is a good substitute for kale? Because kale has the problem that with some people it can speed up your thyroid too much, so what's a good substitute?
Baby spinach.
Okay.
Yeah. And don't ever put arugula in a smoothie. Everyone learned that the hard way. No, thank you. What else? Yes?
Could you just have a mushroom smoothie?
Oh my god. No, they make delicious mushroom products with chaga and reishi mushrooms that are blended with cocoa that are awesome. And at first I was like, yeah, right, I'm drinking mushrooms in my tea. It's great. There are some really good ones. I don't remember the brand, but yeah, not all mushrooms are savory. We ended the talk talking about mushrooms. I forgot. Yeah.
You just slowly go back in slides, because I know there was one that I missed back here somewhere, but I don't remember which one it was.
I don't think, this one?
No?
I know it's not the Dave Grohl one.
Whatever.
Whatever.
What do you mean by be a juicer?
Be a juicer means do one thing and do it well and you'll get more out of it. I am a former English teacher, so I speak in metaphors many times. The juicer really worked for me on a metaphorical level. Any other questions? Yes, at the back.
Yeah, I hear a lot of people when they talk about being effective with your time, building up schedules and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you can speak to it, but some part of me fears as though I may be messing myself up if I try to live my entire life on this prescribed way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it almost feels like I need time to not think in order to be out of my life around me feeling like I'm just going from point to point to point without really being.
So it depends on how busy you are at the moment. There are times that necessitate that type of schedule, and there are other times where you can, I know this sounds stupid, but pencil in time to do nothing. And then you get that time to do nothing, but it's built in, and you don't have to really stress about it. So I would say, but also you know yourself better than anyone. Try that for a week, and if you're like, this does not resonate with me, then it doesn't resonate with you and try something else. Everybody knows themselves better than they give credit for. Trust your gut. If you try it and you're like, man, this is not me, then it's not you. So, but definitely try. They say that if you do something for 20 days, it becomes a habit. Maybe say, all right, for 20 days I'm going to live like this. And just see. Just get curious. See how you feel. Yeah. Yes?
You mentioned you and your husband in a kind of joking manner as you made both of them,
Yeah.
When you were talking about the crisis you were having with funding and such, that's a bit daunting to hear that someone with such repute and a following already could have trouble getting funding.
Well, what the problem was, we needed funding quickly because we had people working.
Right.
In our next project, we have built in time to acquire funding properly. And this other company had promised us this funding. And we were working out this 30-page contract that was a legal document. But we spent too long over the stupid little details and the wording with our lawyers being like, well, what does the word is mean, really? And that is what screwed us over. It's not that we couldn't receive funding, it's that we had a problem with this company shutting down their games division and then having to pivot and get the rest of the funding really quick. So, does that answer your question?
My question was if it can be that hectic for someone that has a following and has a backing behind them with fans and such, do you have any advice for people that aren't known?
Plan for a lot of time to try to find funding, because there are people out there, there are angel investors, there are small publishers, but it takes time to meet them and to get the rapport going and get the conversation going. So I would say take the amount of time you plan on getting funding and double it, because it's a lot of conversations. Yeah, it's just, it's reach. Talk to 100 people, maybe 10 will get back to you, Yeah, so. Anything else? Yeah?
How do you deal with decision-making under uncertainty?
I think it goes back to objectives and core values. What do we really want? And when you know what you really want, the decisions are easier. Now, sometimes, Bill has an opinion and I have an opinion, and we both think that they fit that objective, but they don't. But we'll sleep on it. A lot of times we'll say, just sleep on it. And
I mean, sometimes you just don't know how things are going to work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You just gotta, like I said, I'm a big person when it comes to instincts. Yeah, and values. Does it fit both? Time is up. I'm so glad everybody came. This was so nice. Thank you so much. And I hope the rest of your ECGC is awesome. So, thank you.